this in a while. Anyway, I think we should face the fact that some people are born leaders by proxy, and some people are born leaders because of their natural skills of influence, which is what a good leader should be like. A good leader should be someone who tries to accommodate those who follow him without completely disrupting them. So it's basically allowing people to think of a clear road for themselves, and then allowing these same people to also gain some influence. In fact, almost pushing it forward. That's really good leadership, and it's something that cannot hide itself. You will see it sometimes would seem like a good leader cheats, but a good leader actually inspires people, gives them hope. So anybody can contribute, using the right platforms, of course. Anybody can contribute, and the influence of our leaders should be those of accommodation, accommodating people who want to follow who want to follow the path where their natural skills leads them. So leaders and managers, as it was, are not one and the same. They are different. A good manager might not be a good leader, and a leader might not be a good leader by proxy. So facilitating this change allows those who are understanding of what leadership is to not try to delve into investing into making themselves be trained to become leaders. I wasn't one to believe the whole good leaders are born thing, but it seems that it really is the case. Good leaders are mentors. So if you have that in mind, then you can try to also accommodate your leaders. The blueprint has been put there, translated, and put out, and a lot of people discovered leadership traits within themselves. This is information redistribution, which accommodates affirmative repositioning on a conscious level, whereby people who understand and affirm how things are and how they should be won't be complacent into allowing that stagnant situation to prevail. So that in itself shows the leadership traits, because there is a lot of influence here, to the point where it shook giants, to the point where they were threatened and felt threatened. As a matter of fact, a lot of people perceived it was a threat. You kind of have to look at our country, which is a democratic country, the Republic of Namibia. You have to look at it and see the transformations by looking at the neighboring countries that we have. Not a lot of them have a good track record. So the fears of war are unfounded, because people want to be comfortable, and they want to be granted permission as well as the map for them to live dignified lives. So this sense of instilling dignity within people, I believe, should be in all government institutions as well as upcoming institutions um, that the government can invest in, because if they are invested in, then obviously the workers or the learners, uh, they are the actual investment. And we are in the knowledge phase once more. We are experiencing enlightenment, where we try to see how to accommodate other countries around us, and as well as how to approach these issues to the point to the point where they appeal to um, human rights, human rights, as well as the right to freedom. So our methods are those of instilling people with knowledge, with ideal, and then seeing what they in turn do with it. Because this sense of solidarity among our nation is one that was parted by our history of wars, and the meaning of independence and freedom and human rights, the right to rule, the right to be led. If it was seen in this context, and if it could facilitate this, then we would actually be ahead of the crowd in Southern Africa. There are lots of scholars who went out abroad and started their lives abroad, who still consider themselves Namibians but are not really contributing towards our nation, not only economically but also socially. Where we can have international acclaimed advisors. So this deficit of leadership, knowledge, information had to become a redistribution of that, and then accumulating this knowledge and letting leadership trickle down to those on the base without dictating how their life should be, allowing them to have a high standard of appreciation. This is it's a tricky time, because had it been earlier understood that this is what was lacking, then we would have the Ministry of Health. It would see him focusing on his duties as opposed to just his as health, a service given by our government. Health, for example, I'm going to use health as an example. Health does not look into infrastructure. The ministries to manage our civil service, to train our civil servants on an international scale. It has not come forth, because most of the hospitals and buildings that exist in most places today were not built by Namibians, and nor were they maintained by Namibians. So the government has allowed the private sector to take full advantage of this lack of comfortable facilities like elevators, like having wards that are meant to treat something specific, uh, as well as having specialists in most of these institutions, hospitals. So our ministers are not looking for investors to help them uh, meet their target. They don't accommodate international advice from more matured nations. It is expected mostly only of the president to be one that goes and delegates with other nations, and this should not be the case. How we look at our institutions, schools, the quality of education in our country is not on par because there is a great deficit in terms of service delivery. The channels are not clear. If the channels were clear, infrastructure would most definitely be, especially for a hospital, I mean, hygiene, it would definitely have been um, the target, as well as building more public hospitals that have pharmacies that treat various diseases, as well as specialized wards, for mind and body, not just body, right? So we have a lot of people suffering from a lot of disorders, but we don't have the infrastructure to facilitate them. So when the nation is healthy, when education is not an impossible thing to reach, and I'm talking about quality education, when our agriculture sectors help communal areas, rural areas in developing their communities and trying to figure out who are the people that depend on what to live. Some people only depend on their maize, their mango and maize and all sorts of things, and it's going away because people are starting to use shops. Uh, Potatoes, tomatoes, onions, all of that stuff can be made at a village if we teach or we get taught about our design. For example, when I was in the north, I figured out that mahangu is horrible for the soil there. And since the soil isn't fertilized, even though there's a lot of fertilizer there, it makes the ground loose. Beans and watermelons, these are the things that should accommodate the mahangu in fields, and this will lead to fertile land, so people can survive the droughts, and their backup plan can then be a job somewhere. But we need to respect the fact that a hut does not mean primitive ways of living, and that they cannot accommodate new ideas. It's unfair. It's not fair that there haven't been surveys, services whereby the regions accommodate their farmers and then figure out who are the ones that aren't really there for farming but for living there and then commuting to work in small towns, and some even in Windhoek and so forth, but then they have a home which is theirs, cattle, goats, all of that stuff which is theirs. So commercializing land there is not the only way to assign value to land. We are in an age where we have we are in an age where we have, so-called villages developing. People are building brick houses and houses with flushing toilets, water is running. So there's a lot of investment being done by the people, but then they have no, channels that lead to them being empowered, right? So this lack of information, like I said, with Mahango, which is a traditional thing, and a lot of ways that people plow, that they have not changed it over time to make it more efficient. Stopping the chopping down of trees to build houses. Um, this is destroying our fertile land. Initiatives like initiatives like put that there, yeah. So initiatives in those communities is not well defined. Although we have a lot of schools, but we are not updating our curriculums, as well as training our teachers better. And this goes the same for hospitals, where the benefits of being a doctor in the public sector is not accommodated, and most people go private. While they were there, and they could have put their skill to good use. Because life is love, bread is bread. Everyone wants to live comfortably. Even doctors, teachers, and so forth. So the investment in the right things is what's lacking. If our country is led towards restoring dignity to civil service workers, we would go a long way. I mean, we're still doing very good right now. So, that will only add more, it will only add more value towards our country. Because importing food is a waste of government funds, as well as unsafe for workers who don't have good unions to represent them. So a lot of things. It's Sunday, I'm just going through this. So yeah, salute.